Imagine having a net worth of $20 million on paper and still worrying about cash flow. I know that sounds absurd, but it's a reality for many startup founders and executives. They build a significant wealth through private company equity, but until there's an acquisition or an IPO or a major liquidity event, much of that wealth remains inaccessible. That's what we call the founder liquidity crunch, and it's becoming one of the most important planning conversations for any successful founder. Before we go any further, I'm Joe Quartucci. I'm the co-founder and managing partner at E3 Wealth, and I work with business owners and retirees to help them turn complex assets into clear, sustainable income and long-term confidence. Let's go ahead and get started. One of the biggest misconceptions in the startup world is assuming wealth and liquidity are the same thing. We know that they're not. You can own a meaningful percentage of a fast-growing company and still be strapped for cash. You can have a valuation that suggests you're worth millions, and yet your mortgage still has to be paid every month, and your taxes still need to be covered every year, and your children still need their college funded, and your life still requires cash flow to enjoy things. Private company equity can create enormous amounts of wealth, but it does not automatically create liquidity. That takes some careful planning. So let's look at a realistic example. A founder owns shares in a company that's raised several rounds of capital. The business is growing. Investors are optimistic. Maybe there's even talk of a future acquisition or an IPO. On paper, the founder's equity is 10 million or maybe 20 million or even possibly more, but there isn't necessarily a clear timeline for when that value becomes cash. The exit could happen in 6 months. It could happen in 6 years. And that is where that pressure begins to build. So this is where a secondary transaction enters the conversation. A secondary market transaction generally allows existing shareholders to sell some of their private company shares before a traditional exit occurs. The buyer might be an institutional investor, a secondary fund, another accredited investor. It could be an existing company stakeholder who wants to buy more shares from them. Instead of waiting for an acquisition for an IPO, the founder gains access to liquidity earlier. The right situation that can create flexibility without requiring a full exit. Another common liquidity event is something called a tender offer. In a tender offer, the company itself or investors associated with the company may offer to purchase shares from the founder's employees. These events often occur during later funding rounds. For founders and executives, tender offers can provide an opportunity to reduce concentration risk if too much of their net worth is now tied up in their company stock. Create liquidity, we've been talking about that the whole video, and strengthen that personal financial flexibility and fund some of those concerns and needs that are out there. But this is a good way to do it without completely stepping away from the future upside that you've created. One mistake we do see regularly in founders is delaying liquidity planning because they're convinced a major exit is just around the corner, or maybe they're right, but often they're not, and markets change and acquisition timelines shift and capital markets tighten. Company priorities evolve. A founder who assumes liquidity is 6 months away can end up finding themselves waiting for a very long time, maybe another 3 years, maybe another 10 years. That's why liquidity planning should never depend entirely upon a future event that's not fully under your control. Whenever private shares are sold, taxes do become part of the conversation, so we don't want to forget that. Questions should include, what is my cost basis? How much did it cost me to create this value? How will my gains be taxed? Capital gains, ordinary income? Do state taxes apply if I live in a state that has state income tax? Are there opportunities to coordinate this with other tax strategies, maybe potentially mitigate? These aren't decisions that you want to figure out after a transaction is already underway. Liquidity planning and tax planning work best when you coordinate them together. One of the most important decisions founders face is determining how much to sell. This isn't usually an all or nothing decision. Many founders don't want to sell everything. Again, we want to participate in that upside, right? But in many cases, they probably shouldn't sell everything. The goal is to create that balance. That's what we're talking about here. So create enough liquidity to reduce your pressure, to fund your personal goals. We talked about college and retirement earlier. Diversify risk is big. We don't want to be overly concentrated in one single asset class, but create optionality as well. What if that exit doesn't occur? This is kind of redundant, but important, while still maintaining that meaningful participation in the company's future growth. That's a very different conversation than simply maximizing ownership at all costs. At a certain point, concentrated wealth becomes a planning issue, not because the company is bad, but because its single asset starts controlling too many of the financial decisions. When all future plans depend on one future liquidity event, flexibility disappears. Good planning restores flexibility. So it's really important. You give founders choices instead of ultimatums, and you really need that. At E3, we work with founders and executives before major liquidity events occur. That includes coordinating equity planning, tax strategy, diversification decisions, cash flow planning. What are you going to do with this money once you've got it? And long-term wealth management. Everything and decision you make should coincide with your personal goals. The conversation is especially relevant for startup founders. There's a lot of those these days in the tech world. Early executives, or somebody who got a lot of stock options, employees with meaningful equity positions that you've been awarded, so RSUs and ISOs, but anyone who's successful on paper but is limited in liquidity today. This is who this conversation is for. But being wealthy on paper and being financially flexible are two very different things. And secondary transactions and tender offers are not right for everyone, but they can provide valuable options if they're used intentionally. The key is making those decisions from a position of strength, not because of some circumstance beyond your control that forces your hand. If you're sitting on significant private company equity and you want to better understand your liquidity options, you can schedule a conversation with our team below. We help founders think differently about their wealth and not just how much they have, but how much is actually accessible, usable, and then again, how much they get to keep.